I need to tell you about something that's about to break wide open. Something that Harley-Davidson has been desperately trying to keep quiet. Something that's going to affect 250,000 Milwaukee-Eight owners. According to sources inside Harley dealerships, inside the NHTSA, and inside law firms that are building cases, there are multiple recalls coming for Milwaukee-Eight engines. Not minor recalls for cosmetic issues, major recalls for defects that cause engine damage, oil consumption, fires, and catastrophic failures. These recalls could be announced as soon as early 2026, and they're going to impact approximately 250,000 motorcycles. 250,000. That's 250,000 bikes with known defects that Harley has been denying and covering up for years. Today is December 11th, 2025. And I'm going to tell you exactly what these recalls are going to cover, which Milwaukee-Eight models and years are affected, why Harley has waited so long to act, what this means for owners, and what you need to do right now to protect yourself before the recalls are officially announced. Stay till the end, because I'm going to tell you the specific legal strategy you should use if you own one of these bikes and you've already paid for repairs that should have been covered under recall. Smash that like button right now if you're ready for the truth that Harley doesn't want you to know. Subscribe and hit the bell, because this channel has been ahead of the Milwaukee-Eight story from the beginning. And if you work for Harley Corporate or you're a dealer who's been told to keep quiet about this, your silence is complicity. Let's expose what's really happening. Let me start by explaining where this information is coming from, because I know Harley fanboys are going to scream in the comments that I'm making this up or fear-mongering. First source, multiple Harley dealership service managers and technicians across the country who are seeing the same patterns of failures and who have been told by their regional service reps that recalls are being prepared, but not to discuss them with customers yet. Second source, documents and communications that have been leaked from ongoing class action lawsuit preparations against Harley-Davidson related to Milwaukee-Eight defects. Third source, NHTSA complaint data showing thousands of consumer complaints about Milwaukee-Eight engines with specific patterns that typically trigger investigations and recalls. Fourth source, parts suppliers who have been contacted by Harley about ramping up production of specific updated components in quantities that indicate recall-level volume. All of these sources point to the same conclusion. Multiple Milwaukee-Eight recalls are coming. It's not if, it's when. Now, let me break down what the recalls are likely to cover based on the information available. First and biggest recall, the oil pump scavenge deficiency on 2017, 2018, and 2019 Milwaukee-Eight engines. This is the issue Harley acknowledged in Technical Service Bulletin M1450 in 2019 when they redesigned the oil pump with increased scavenge capacity for 2020 production. But they never recalled the earlier bikes. They left hundreds of thousands of owners riding motorcycles with defective pumps that cause oil sumping, foaming, consumption, poor lubrication, and progressive engine damage. The NHTSA has received over 1,500 complaints specifically about oil consumption and engine damage on early Milwaukee-Eight models. That's enough complaints to trigger an investigation. And once the NHTSA investigates and confirms a safety defect, they can force a recall even if the manufacturer refuses to do it voluntarily. Why is this a safety issue and not just a reliability issue? Because engines that consume oil and lose lubrication can seize while riding. A seized engine on a highway at 70 miles per hour is a safety hazard. It can cause loss of control, crashes, injuries, deaths. The NHTSA doesn't care about your engine being expensive to repair. They care about safety. And oil pump failures that lead to engine seizures are absolutely a safety defect that warrants a recall. Based on production numbers, there are approximately 175,000 to 200,000 2017-2019 Milwaukee-Eight motorcycles still on the road. That's the core of this recall. Second recall, cam chain tensioner failures. The Milwaukee-Eight uses a hydraulic cam chain tensioner to maintain proper tension on the cam chain. But these tensioners are failing prematurely on bikes with as little as 20 to 40,000 miles. When the tensioner fails, the cam chain goes slack, timing gets thrown off, valves can hit pistons, catastrophic engine damage results. The NHTSA has received hundreds of complaints about sudden engine failures related to cam chain and tensioner issues. Harley has quietly updated the tensioner design multiple times, which proves they know there's a problem, but they haven't recalled the bikes with the faulty tensioners. This affects Milwaukee-Eight engines across all years, 2017 through current production. Estimated affected bikes, another 50 to 70,000 units that have either already failed or are at risk of failure. Third recall potential, fuel system and fire risk. There have been multiple reports and NHTSA complaints about fuel leaks from Milwaukee-Eight fuel pumps, fuel lines, and injection components. Fuel leaks near hot engine components create fire risk. Harley has already had recalls on other models for fuel system issues. It's only a matter of time before Milwaukee-Eight fuel systems get recalled too. Estimated affected bikes, 20 to 30,000 units with specific fuel system components that are prone to leaking. Fourth recall potential, clutch actuation problems. Milwaukee-Eight models, especially touring bikes, have had reports of clutch slipping, grabbing, or failing to disengage properly. This is related to hydraulic clutch components and actuation design. If a clutch suddenly fails to disengage and the bike lurches forward unexpectedly, that's a safety issue. The NHTSA has received complaints about this. It could trigger a recall. Estimated affected bikes, 15 to 20,000 units. Add it all up. Oil pump recall affecting 175 to 200,000 bikes. Cam tensioner recall affecting 50 to 70,000. Fuel system recall affecting 20 to 30,000. Clutch recall affecting 15 to 20,000. Some bikes have multiple issues and would be covered by multiple recalls. Total unique affected motorcycles, approximately 250,000. That's the number. That's why sources are saying 250,000 bikes. It's not one big recall. It's multiple recalls covering different defects, but together they affect that many motorcycles. Now let me explain why Harley has waited so long to issue these recalls and why they're only happening now. Recalls are expensive. Massively expensive. The manufacturer has to pay for parts, labor, notification costs, administrative costs, everything. A recall affecting 250,000 bikes could easily cost Harley $300 to $500 million. Maybe more depending on what needs to be fixed. Harley doesn't have that kind of money sitting around. They're in survival mode financially. Sales are down. Cash is tight. They just restructured over $1 billion in debt. A massive recall bill would devastate their finances. So they've been denying, delaying, and hoping the problem goes away. They've been fighting individual warranty claims. They've been blaming owners. They've been setting oil consumption specs absurdly high so they can claim defects are within normal limits. They've been doing everything possible to avoid a recall. But the complaints keep coming. The failures keep happening. Lawyers are building class action cases with thousands of affected owners as plaintiffs. The NHTSA is receiving more and more complaints, and eventually they reach a threshold where they have to investigate. And Harley knows that once the NHTSA starts an official investigation, the evidence is going to be overwhelming. Internal documents will be subpoenaed. Engineers will be deposed. The defects will be proven. And at that point, Harley will either have to issue recalls voluntarily or the NHTSA will force them to. So Harley is in a position where they know recalls are inevitable. They're preparing for them, but they're trying to delay the announcement as long as possible to avoid the financial and public relations hit. Here's why I believe the recalls will be announced in early 2026. First, Harley's fiscal year ends December 31st. They want to get through year-end 2025 financial reporting without having to disclose massive recall liabilities on their books. Announcing recalls in January or February 2026 pushes the financial impact into the next fiscal year. It's an accounting strategy. Second, there are multiple class action lawsuits in progress right now related to Milwaukee-Eight defects. These cases are in discovery phase. Documents are being exchanged. Depositions are being scheduled. If Harley is going to settle these cases, which they probably will to avoid trial, they'll want to do it in conjunction with a recall announcement so they can say, "Look, we're fixing the problem. Case closed." Settlement negotiations often happen in the January to March timeframe to resolve cases before trial dates later in the year. Third, the NHTSA complaint database shows a spike in Milwaukee-Eight complaints over the last 18 months. That timing suggests investigations could be wrapping up and recall decisions coming soon. Now let me tell you what happens when these recalls are officially announced and how it's going to affect you as an owner. First, your bike's value is going to drop, not because anything changed about your bike, but because the market will react to the news that 250,000 Milwaukee-Eight bikes have known defects serious enough to warrant recalls. Buyers are going to be scared. They're going to lowball offers. Dealers are going to stop taking trades on affected models. Values could drop 10 to 20% in a matter of weeks after the recall announcements. If you're planning to sell, you need to do it now before the recalls are announced while values are still where they are. Once the news breaks, it's too late. Second, getting the recall work done is going to be a nightmare. Harley dealers are already overbooked with normal service work. Now, imagine every dealer getting flooded with recall appointments. Hundreds of bikes per dealership needing oil pump replacements, tensioner replacements, fuel system work. Dealers don't have the capacity. You're going to be waiting months to get an appointment. In the meantime, you're riding a bike with a known defect. And if your engine fails while you're waiting for the recall repair, you're stuck with the damage. Third, the quality of recall repairs is going to be inconsistent. Dealers are going to be rushing to get bikes in and out. Technicians are going to be doing the same repair over and over, dozens of times a day. Mistakes will happen. Corners will be cut. Some owners are going to get their bikes back with new problems caused by sloppy recall work. And good luck getting Harley to take responsibility for damage caused during recall repairs. They'll blame the dealer. The dealer will blame the tech. You'll be stuck in the middle with a messed up bike. Fourth, even after recalls are completed, the stigma will remain. A 2018 Street Glide that's been through an oil pump recall will always be a bike that had a major recall. That affects resale value forever. Buyers will see the recall history in Carfax or vehicle history reports, and they'll use it to negotiate lower prices. You'll never fully recover the value you lost. Fifth, and this is important, if you already paid out of pocket for repairs related to these defects before the recall was announced, you need to file for reimbursement. Harley is required by law to reimburse owners who paid for repairs of recalled defects before the recall was issued. But they don't make it easy. You have to document everything, submit receipts, fill out forms, and fight with their customer service. Many owners don't know about this reimbursement right, or don't bother pursuing it. Don't be that person. If you paid for an oil pump replacement, tensioner replacement, or any repair related to these defects, keep every receipt, document everything, and file for reimbursement as soon as the recall is announced. Now let me address the owners who are going to say, "My bike is fine, I've had no problems, this doesn't affect me." Maybe you're lucky. Maybe your specific bike doesn't have the defect as severely. Maybe you ride less and haven't hit the mileage where problems emerge. But the defect is still there. It's a design flaw. It affects all bikes with those components. Just because your bike hasn't failed yet doesn't mean it won't. And once a recall is announced, your bike is officially a recalled bike, whether it's failed or not. The market doesn't care that your specific unit hasn't had problems. They see 2018 Milwaukee-Eight, subject to oil pump recall, and they value it accordingly. Let me tell you about a precedent that shows exactly how this is going to play out. In 2018, Harley recalled about 250,000 motorcycles for brake problems. This was related to a brake master cylinder defect that could cause loss of braking power. The recall affected multiple model years across different bike lines. When the recall was announced, used values on affected models dropped 10 to 15% almost immediately. Owners who tried to sell during the recall process got crushed on pricing. It took over a year for dealers to work through all the recall repairs. And even after repairs were done, those bikes carried the stigma. Insurance companies increased rates on affected models. Lenders reduced loan-to-value ratios. It was a mess for owners. The same thing is going to happen with Milwaukee-Eight recalls, except worse, because these defects are more serious and affect more expensive components. Here's another precedent: the GM ignition switch recall that affected millions of vehicles. When that recall was announced, GM vehicle values plummeted. Owners who had already experienced failures and paid for repairs out of pocket had to fight for years to get reimbursement. Many never got paid back. Class action settlements took forever to process, and owners got pennies on the dollar compared to what they spent. The whole thing was a nightmare. Harley owners are going to go through the same thing. Now let me tell you what you specifically need to do right now if you own a Milwaukee-Eight, especially a 2017, 2018, or 2019 model. First, document your bike's current condition. Take photos, record video, note the mileage, check your oil level and document it. If you have any symptoms like oil consumption, smoke, leaks, noises, document those too. Write down dates and details. This creates a baseline record before any recall is announced. Second, gather all your maintenance records and receipts. If you've already paid for any repairs that might be related to these defects, oil pump work, tensioner replacement, engine work, clutch work, fuel system work, organize those receipts. You're going to need them for reimbursement claims. Third, check the NHTSA website and file your own complaint if you've experienced any problems. Go to safercar.gov, search for your bike, and file a complaint describing what happened. The more complaints the NHTSA receives, the more pressure on Harley to act. Your complaint becomes part of the official record. Fourth, consider selling your bike now if you were planning to sell anyway. Get out before the recall announcements hit and values drop further. Price aggressively and move fast. Fifth, if you're keeping the bike, at minimum check your oil level weekly and watch for any changes in consumption, smoke, performance, or noises. If problems start emerging, stop riding and take it to a dealer immediately. Don't risk catastrophic failure. Sixth, join or follow the class action lawsuits against Harley for Milwaukee-Eight defects, even if you haven't experienced problems yet. If recalls are announced that affect your bike, you might be entitled to compensation beyond just the recall repair. Lawyers are building cases for diminished value, loss of use, emotional distress, all kinds of claims. You want to be in the loop on those cases. Seventh, talk to other Milwaukee-Eight owners, online forums, Facebook groups, local riding groups. Share information about what problems people are seeing, what dealers are saying, what repairs are being done. Collective knowledge helps everyone. If you stay isolated, you're easier to gaslight and dismiss. Let me walk you through exactly what's going to happen when the recalls are officially announced. Harley will issue a press release, probably late on a Friday afternoon, to minimize media coverage. They'll frame it as proactive customer care or commitment to quality. They'll downplay the severity. They'll say it's a small percentage of bikes, even though it's 250,000. The financial media will cover it briefly. Motorcycle media will cover it more extensively. Within hours, it'll be all over forums and social media. Panic will set in among owners. Dealerships will be flooded with calls. Owners will be demanding appointments. Dealers won't have answers because they're still waiting for parts and repair procedures from Harley. Over the next few weeks, Harley will mail official recall notices to registered owners. These notices will explain what the defect is, what the risk is, and instruct owners to contact their dealer to schedule recall repairs. Dealers will start receiving the updated parts and repair instructions, but there won't be enough parts for everyone immediately. Harley will prioritize based on VIN numbers, allocating parts to dealers in waves. If you're not in the first wave, you wait. Could be weeks or months. Meanwhile, you're driving a bike with a known safety defect. When you finally get your recall appointment, you drop off your bike. The dealer does the repair. If it's an oil pump replacement, they have to drain oil, remove primary cover, possibly remove engine from frame depending on the model, replace the pump, reassemble, refill, test. That's 8 to 12 hours of labor. Multiply that by dozens or hundreds of bikes per dealer. The service bays will be overwhelmed. Your bike will sit there for days or weeks waiting for a service slot. When you finally get it back, hopefully it's done right, but there will be cases where it's not. Leaks from reassembly, improperly torqued bolts, forgotten steps. It happens. Over the next year or two, the recall process plays out. Completion rates will be low at first. Many owners won't bother getting the work done because their bikes seem fine and they don't want the hassle. But every year when registration renewal comes up, the DMV will flag your bike as having an open safety recall, and some states won't let you renew until it's completed. That forces compliance. Eventually, most bikes will get repaired, but the process will be painful, slow, and frustrating for everyone involved. Now let me address what Harley should have done instead of what they actually did. They should have issued voluntary recalls back in 2019 when they redesigned the oil pump and admitted there was a scavenge issue. They should have said, "We identified a problem with early production. We've fixed it going forward, and we're recalling 2017 to 2019 bikes to retrofit the updated pump at no cost to owners." Yes, it would have been expensive, but it would have been the right thing to do. It would have protected customer safety. It would have preserved brand trust. Instead, they chose to deny, delay, and let owners suffer. They prioritized short-term cost savings over long-term reputation and customer loyalty. And now they're going to pay for it with forced recalls, class action settlements, and permanent brand damage. This is why people are losing faith in Harley-Davidson. It's not just about the bikes having problems. Every manufacturer has problems occasionally. It's about how the company responds when problems are discovered. Honda issues recalls proactively. Yamaha stands behind their products. BMW takes care of customers. Harley denies, gaslights, and abandons owners. That's why people are switching to other brands. That's why Harley is dying, because they've lost the trust of their customer base through years of this kind of behavior. Here's what I predict happens after the recalls are announced. Short-term chaos and panic, values drop. Owners are angry, dealers are overwhelmed, media coverage is negative. Harley's stock drops another 10 to 20%. They take a massive financial hit from the recall costs. Their already weak balance sheet gets weaker. Long-term, Harley never fully recovers. The Milwaukee-Eight is permanently tainted. Buyers avoid it. Used values stay depressed. Harley's sales continue declining. More dealers close. The death spiral accelerates. By 2027 or 2028, Harley is either bankrupt, acquired, or a shell of what it once was, and Milwaukee-Eight owners are left holding depreciated assets that nobody wants. Compare this to how Indian Motorcycle has handled problems. When Indian discovered issues with their early Scout models, they addressed them quickly and transparently. They didn't try to hide problems or blame customers. They fixed bikes and moved on. That's why Indian is growing while Harley is shrinking. Customers reward honesty and accountability. They punish denial and deception. Here's the bottom line. Multiple Milwaukee-Eight recalls are coming. They're going to affect approximately 250,000 motorcycles. The recalls will cover oil pump defects, cam tensioner failures, fuel system leaks, and possibly clutch issues. They're likely to be announced in early 2026. When they're announced, used Milwaukee-Eight values are going to drop significantly. Getting recall repairs done is going to be a slow, frustrating process. Even after repairs, the stigma will remain. If you own one of these bikes, you need to act now. Document everything. Gather receipts. Consider selling before the announcements. If you keep the bike, monitor it closely and be prepared for the recall circus. And if you've already paid for repairs related to these defects, prepare to fight for reimbursement. Don't let Harley gaslight you into thinking everything is fine. Everything is not fine. 250,000 bikes with known defects is not fine. Recalls are coming. Be ready. What's your Milwaukee-Eight experience? Have you had problems? Are you worried about recalls? Drop your story in the comments. Smash that like button if this video opened your eyes to what's coming. Subscribe and hit the bell so you know the moment these recalls are officially announced. Share this with every Milwaukee-Eight owner you know. They need to be prepared. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. Document everything. And remember, the only thing worse than a defective product is a company that won't stand behind it.